Do you even speak English? The millionaire's daughter mocked. The maid's lesson left her in tears. Welcome back to our channel, dear viewers. Today we have an incredible story that will touch your heart and remind you that respect and kindness are the most valuable treasures anyone can possess. This is the story of Maria, a hard-working maid, and Sophie, a wealthy young woman who learned life's most important lesson the hard way. Before we begin, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. It really helps us bring you more amazing stories like this one. And don't forget to comment below and let us know where you're listening from. We love hearing from our amazing community around the world. Are you from New York? Los Angeles? Maybe somewhere international? Drop a comment and say hi. Now let's dive into this powerful story that takes place in the heart of Manhattan, where two worlds collide and change forever. Chapter 1. The Golden Cage. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse apartment on Fifth Avenue, casting long shadows across the marble floors. At 22, Sophie Hamilton had never known a day without luxury. Her father, Richard Hamilton, was one of New York's most successful real estate moguls, and their home reflected every dollar of his fortune. Sophie stood in her walk-in closet, the size of most people's bedrooms, surrounded by designer clothes still bearing their tags. She was getting ready for another day of shopping and brunch with her equally privileged friends. Her phone buzzed with messages from her social circle, all making plans to spend money they'd never worked for. Sophie, darling, her mother, Catherine, called from downstairs. Don't forget, you have that charity luncheon at the plaza today. It's good for our family image. Sophie rolled her eyes. Everything was about image in the Hamilton household. She grabbed a Chanel purse and headed downstairs, where the familiar sound of vacuum cleaning filled the air. Maria Gonzalez, a 45-year-old woman from Guatemala, was meticulously cleaning the living room. She had been working for the Hamilton family for 3 years, sending most of her earnings back home to support her elderly mother and her teenage son, who was studying to become a doctor. Maria looked up and smiled warmly. "Good morning, Miss Sophie. Your breakfast is ready in the dining room." Sophie barely glanced at her. "Whatever. And make sure you don't move anything on my desk again. I had everything perfectly organized." "Of course, Miss Sophie. I'll be very careful," Maria replied, her English accented but clear. She had been taking night classes to improve her language skills, determined to give her son the best example of perseverance. As Sophie walked away, she muttered loud enough for Maria to hear, "I wish Dad would hire someone who actually speaks proper English around here." Maria's hands paused on the vacuum handle, but she said nothing. She had learned to endure these small cruelties with dignity, focusing on her larger purpose, providing for her family and building a better future. In the dining room, Sophie picked at her gourmet breakfast while scrolling through Instagram, completely oblivious to the woman who had woken up at 5 a.m. to prepare it. Her world was one of endless privilege, where people like Maria were invisible, mere fixtures in her comfortable life. Outside, the city hummed with the energy of millions of people working hard to achieve their dreams. But inside the Hamilton penthouse, Sophie remained trapped in her golden cage, unaware that her greatest lesson was about to begin. Chapter 2. The Breaking Point. 3 weeks later, the Hamilton family was preparing for their annual charity gala, an event that raised money for underprivileged children's education. The irony was lost on Sophie, who saw it merely as another opportunity to showcase her latest designer dress and network with New York's elite. The penthouse was bustling with activity. Caterers, florists, and event planners moved efficiently through the space, transforming it into an elegant venue. Maria worked tirelessly alongside them, ensuring every detail was perfect. She had been working 14-hour days for the past week, barely sleeping, but she needed the overtime pay. Sophie emerged from her room in a stunning emerald gown that cost more than Maria made in 6 months. She was on the phone with her friend Jessica, speaking loudly and carelessly. "I know, right? It's so annoying having all these people in the house," Sophie complained, gesturing dismissively at the workers around her. "At least the real staff knows how to do their jobs properly." Maria was nearby, carefully arranging flowers in a crystal vase. Her hands were steady despite her exhaustion, and she took pride in making everything beautiful for the Hamilton family's guests. "Sophie, dear, could you help me with something?" Catherine called from across the room. Sophie sighed dramatically. "Mum, I'm on the phone. Can't the maid do it? Maria is busy with the flowers, and I need someone to review the guest list with me." Sophie hung up and walked over, but not before stopping directly in front of Maria. "Excuse me," she said sharply. "Maria, right? Could you move? You're blocking my path." Maria looked up, confused. There was plenty of room to walk around her, but she stepped aside respectfully. "Of course, Miss Sophie, I'm sorry." "And while you're at it," Sophie continued, her voice dripping with condescension, "could you try to be a little more, I don't know, invisible? This is an important event, and we need everything to be perfect." Maria's face remained composed, but something shifted in her eyes. "I understand, Miss Sophie. I'll do my best." "Good. Oh, and Maria." Sophie turned back with a cruel smile. "Do you even speak English? Because sometimes I honestly can't tell what you're trying to say." The room fell silent. The other workers stopped what they were doing, shocked by the blatant disrespect. Maria's hands trembled slightly as she held the flowers, but her voice remained steady. "I speak English, Miss Sophie. I also speak Spanish, and I'm learning French in my night classes. But I understand that my accent might be difficult for you." Sophie laughed mockingly. "Night classes, that's cute. Maybe you should focus on doing your job better instead of pretending to be something you're not." Maria set down the flowers carefully and looked directly at Sophie. For the first time in 3 years, she wasn't going to stay silent. "Miss Sophie, I work very hard for your family. I clean your home, prepare your meals, and take care of everything you need. I do this with respect and dignity. I only ask for the same in return." "Respect," Sophie's voice rose. "You're the help. You work for us. That's not a relationship that requires respect." The words hung in the air like a poison cloud. Maria straightened her shoulders, and when she spoke again, her voice carried a quiet strength that commanded attention. "Miss Sophie, I may be your employee, but I am not less than you. I am a mother, a daughter, and a woman who has worked hard for everything I have. My English may not be perfect, but it doesn't make me less intelligent or less worthy of basic human kindness." Sophie's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. She hadn't expected Maria to stand up for herself, and the presence of other workers made her feel exposed. "How dare you talk to me like that? You're fired!" The silence that followed was deafening. Chapter 3. The Revelation. Richard Hamilton chose that exact moment to walk through the front door. Having returned early from a business trip, he had heard the raised voices from the hallway and entered to find his daughter red-faced and furious, facing Maria, who stood with quiet dignity despite being clearly upset. "What's going on here?" Richard demanded, his voice carrying the authority of a man accustomed to being obeyed. "Dad, thank God you're here." Sophie rushed to his side. Maria was being completely disrespectful. She raised her voice at me and was arguing when I was just trying to give her simple instructions. I had to let her go. Richard looked around the room, noting the uncomfortable expressions of the other workers and the careful way Maria was removing her apron. Something didn't add up. "Maria," he said, his tone more measured than his daughter's, "I'd like to hear your side of this." Maria hesitated. She had always respected Mr. Hamilton, who had been fair to her, but she also knew that defending herself against his daughter could make things worse. "It's okay, Mr. Hamilton. I'll collect my things and leave." "No, Maria, I want to know what happened. You've worked for us for 3 years without a single complaint. Something significant must have occurred." Sophie shifted uncomfortably. She had expected her father to simply support her decision without question. Maria took a deep breath. "Miss Sophie asked me to be invisible during the party tonight. When I tried to explain that I was doing my best, she mocked my English and said I was pretending to be something I'm not. I simply asked for basic respect." Richard's jaw tightened. He had built his fortune from nothing, and he understood the value of hard work and dignity. "Sophie, is this true?" "Dad, she's exaggerating. I was just trying to ensure everything would be perfect for tonight." "By insulting someone who has worked faithfully for our family." One of the caterers, an older woman who had been working events for decades, stepped forward. "Excuse me, Mr. Hamilton. I witnessed the entire exchange. Your daughter was unnecessarily cruel. Maria was simply doing her job. Richard's face darkened. He looked at his daughter with disappointment that cut deeper than any anger could have. "Sophie, go to your room. We'll discuss this later." "Dad, you can't be serious. She's just what, Sophie?" Richard's voice was dangerously quiet. "A human being who deserves respect. Someone who has taken care of our family with dedication and kindness. Go to your room, now." Sophie stormed off, shocked that her father had taken Maria's side. She had never faced real consequences for her behavior, and this felt like a betrayal. Richard turned to Maria, who was still standing with quiet dignity, despite the humiliation she had endured. "Maria, I owe you an apology. My daughter's behavior was inexcusable, and I take full responsibility for not addressing this sooner. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton, but I think it's best if I leave." "No," Richard said firmly. "You're not going anywhere. You're family, Maria, and family doesn't abandon each other." For the first time that day, Maria's composure cracked slightly, and tears welled in her eyes. "Thank you, sir. That means more to me than you know." Richard called for his wife, who had been in another room during the confrontation. When Catherine heard what had happened, she was mortified. "Richard, we've failed as parents. How did we raise a daughter who could treat another person this way?" That evening, as the gala preparations continued, Sophie remained in her room, excluded from the very event she had been so excited about. Through her window, she could see Maria moving gracefully through the crowd, helping with final preparations, respected and valued by everyone except the one person who should have appreciated her most. Chapter 4. The Education. The next morning, Sophie emerged from her room expecting everything to return to normal. Instead, she found her father waiting for her in the dining room, his expression serious. "Sit down, Sophie. We need to talk." "Dad, about yesterday." "Yesterday showed me that your mother and I have failed you. We've given you everything you could want, but we haven't taught you the most important lesson of all, how to be a decent human being." Sophie's face flushed. "That's not fair. You just humiliated a woman who has worked tirelessly for our family. You mocked her accent, questioned her intelligence, and treated her as if she were less than human." Richard leaned forward, his voice stern but not unkind. "Do you know anything about Maria's life, Sophie? Anything at all?" Sophie shifted uncomfortably. She had never bothered to learn about the woman who had been a constant presence in her home for 3 years. "I thought not. Let me educate you." Richard pulled out a folder from his briefcase. "Maria Gonzalez is 45 years old. She came to this country 12 years ago, not speaking a word of English. She worked 3 jobs while learning the language, sending money home to support her elderly mother and her son." He opened the folder and showed Sophie a photograph. "This is Carlos, Maria's son. He's 19 years old and just finished his 2nd year of medical school. He's studying to become a pediatric surgeon. His tuition is paid for entirely by his mother's hard work." Sophie stared at the photo of a young man with kind eyes and a bright smile, holding a medical textbook. "Maria's mother has diabetes and requires expensive medication. Maria sends home $800 every month to ensure her mother receives proper care. She lives in a small studio apartment in Queens, taking the subway for 2 hours each day to get to work." Richard's voice grew softer. "She takes night classes 3 evenings a week to improve her English and has been studying French because she dreams of visiting Paris someday, something she'll probably never afford to do." Sophie felt something uncomfortable stirring in her chest, an emotion she wasn't familiar with. "Every morning, Maria arrives at 6 a.m. to prepare your breakfast. She knows exactly how you like your coffee, that you prefer your eggs slightly runny, and that you always eat the strawberries first. She irons your clothes, cleans your bathroom, and makes sure your favorite flowers are always fresh in your room." "Dad, I'm not finished." Richard's voice was firm but not harsh. "When you were sick with pneumonia last year, Maria stayed late every evening to make you homemade soup. She researched natural remedies and prepared special teas to help you recover. She did this because she genuinely cares about your well-being, not because it was required." Sophie remembered being sick, remembered the delicious soup that had made her feel better, but she had never thought about who had made it or why. "Maria speaks 3 languages, Sophie. She's raising a son who will save children's lives. She supports her elderly mother and has never missed a day of work in 3 years. She's accomplished more with her life than most people ever will. Richard closed the folder and looked directly at his daughter. And yesterday, you mocked her accent and told her she was pretending to be something she's not. You treated her like she was invisible, like she didn't matter. Sophie felt tears beginning to form in her eyes. I didn't know. You didn't know because you never bothered to ask. You live in a bubble, Sophie, surrounded by privilege and completely disconnected from the real world. What do you want me to do? Sophie's voice was small. I want you to understand that wealth and privilege are not achievements. They're responsibilities. We have been given much, which means much is expected of us. Your behavior yesterday was not just cruel. It was a betrayal of everything our family should stand for. Richard stood up. You're going to apologize to Maria. A real apology. Not because I'm forcing you, but because you understand what you did wrong. And then you're going to do something to make amends. What do you mean? You're going to spend the next month working alongside Maria. You're going to learn what it means to work hard, to serve others, and to appreciate the people who make your comfortable life possible. Sophie's eyes widened. Dad, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. You'll work 8 hours a day, learning every aspect of running a household. You'll grocery shop, cook, clean, and understand what it takes to care for others. But what about my friends, my social events? Your friends will have to wait. Your social events will have to wait. Your education in being a decent human being cannot wait any longer. Sophie sat in stunned silence, beginning to understand that her father was completely serious. Her world of endless privilege was about to change dramatically. Chapter 5. The Transformation. 3 weeks into her education, Sophie stood in the Hamilton kitchen at 6 a.m., exhausted but determined. Her manicured nails were chipped, her designer workout clothes were stained, and her back ached from the physical demands of housework. But something profound had changed in her eyes. They held a depth and understanding that hadn't been there before. Maria entered the kitchen, surprised to find Sophie already preparing breakfast. Over the past weeks, Maria had watched this privileged young woman transform before her eyes. "Good morning, Sophie," Maria said warmly. The formal Miss Sophie had been dropped days ago, replaced by something that felt more like friendship. "Good morning, Maria. I made coffee the way you taught me, and I'm trying that pancake recipe you showed me yesterday." Maria smiled and moved to help, but Sophie gently stopped her. "Please, let me do this. I want to get it right." As Sophie worked, she found herself thinking about everything she had learned. The first week had been humiliating. She had burned food, mixed up cleaning products, and made mistakes that would have seemed impossible just a month before. But Maria had been patient, kind and encouraging, teaching her not just the practical skills, but the pride that came from honest work. "Maria," Sophie said as she flipped a pancake, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why were you so patient with me? After everything I said, after how I treated you, why did you help me learn?" Maria considered the question while setting the table. "Because I saw something in you that you didn't see in yourself. You were lost, Sophie, trapped in a world that taught you to look down on others instead of lifting them up. I have a son, and I would hope that if he ever lost his way, someone would be patient enough to help him find it again." Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "I was so awful to you. You were young and ignorant, but ignorance can be cured with experience and education. Cruelty is much harder to change, but you're not cruel, Sophie. You just didn't understand." As they worked together preparing breakfast, Sophie reflected on the past 3 weeks. She had learned more than just household skills. She had discovered the satisfaction of completing a difficult task, the pride in making something beautiful with her own hands, and the joy of serving others. She had also learned about Maria's life in ways she never could have imagined. She knew now that Maria sent money home every month, that she called her son every Sunday evening, and that she worried constantly about her mother's health. She had learned that Maria dreamed of visiting Paris, that she loved poetry, and that she had a beautiful singing voice. Most importantly, Sophie had learned that Maria was not the help. She was a remarkable woman whose strength, intelligence, and kindness had shaped the comfortable world Sophie had taken for granted. "Maria," Sophie said as she plated the pancakes, "I need to tell you something." "What is it?" Sophie took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about what I want to do with my life. I've spent 22 years being completely useless, living off my father's money and contributing nothing to the world." Maria listened carefully, recognizing the sincerity in Sophie's voice. "I want to start a foundation, a real one, not just another charity gala. I want to help people like you, immigrants who are working hard to build better lives for their families." Sophie's voice grew stronger as she spoke. "I want to provide English classes, job training and educational scholarships. I want to create opportunities for people who have the determination and intelligence to succeed but lack the resources." "That's a beautiful dream, Sophie." "It's not just a dream. I've been researching it, and I've already talked to Dad about it. He's agreed to help me start it properly." Maria's eyes shone with pride. "Your parents will be so proud of you." "I hope so, but Maria, I need you to know that this isn't about making myself feel better about how I treated you. This is about understanding that I have a responsibility to use my privilege to help others, not to look down on them." Just then, Richard entered the kitchen, surprised to find his daughter and Maria working together so naturally. "Good morning, ladies. Something smells wonderful," Sophie beamed at her father. "I made breakfast. Well, Maria supervised, but I actually cooked everything myself." Richard sat down at the kitchen table, something he had never done before. Usually, breakfast was a formal affair in the dining room, but this felt more real, more connected. "Sophie, I have some news about your foundation idea," he said as she served him pancakes. "I've been speaking with some colleagues, and there's significant interest in supporting your initiative." Sophie's face lit up with excitement, but then she turned to Maria. "Would you consider being on the board of directors? I can't imagine running this foundation without your insights and experience." Maria was speechless. A month ago, this same young woman had mocked her accent and treated her as invisible. Now she was asking her to help guide a foundation that would help people like her. I would be honored, Sophie." As the three of them sat around the kitchen table, eating breakfast together, something beautiful had emerged from the ugliness of that day weeks before. Sophie had learned that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the connections we make with others, the kindness we show, and the positive impact we have on the world. Richard watched his daughter with pride, seeing not just the privileged young woman she had been, but the compassionate, purposeful woman she was becoming, and Maria, who had endured so much with grace and dignity, saw her quiet strength and wisdom finally being recognized and valued. "Maria," Sophie said as they finished breakfast, "I have something for you." She handed Maria an envelope. Inside was a check for $10,000 and a letter. "Oh, what is this?" "It's a scholarship fund for Carlos. I've researched his medical school, and this will cover his remaining tuition and living expenses. He'll never have to worry about money again while he's studying." Maria's hands trembled as she read the letter. "Sophie, this is too much. I can't accept this." "Yes, you can, and you will, because Carlos is going to be an incredible doctor, and the world needs people like him. This isn't charity, Maria. This is an investment in the future." Maria began to cry, not tears of sadness, but tears of joy and gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for seeing us, for understanding what we're trying to accomplish." Sophie hugged her tightly. "Thank you for teaching me what really matters. You changed my life more than you'll ever know." As the sun streamed through the kitchen windows, illuminating their faces, it was clear that both women had been transformed by their experience. Sophie had learned that true respect is earned through character, not birthright, and that the most important lessons in life come from the most unexpected teachers. And Maria had learned that sometimes even the most privileged hearts can be open to compassion and understanding. Their story became a testament to the power of second chances, the importance of treating every person with dignity, and the beautiful truth that we are all teachers and students in the grand classroom of life. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey of transformation and redemption. Sophie's story reminds us that no matter where we come from, we all have the power to change, to grow, and to make a positive impact on the world around us. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories that celebrate the human spirit and remind us of our shared humanity. What did you think of Sophie's transformation? Have you ever had a moment that completely changed your perspective on life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing from our amazing community. Until next time, remember, true wealth isn't what you have, but what you give to others. See you in the next story.